All right, so I am Lisa Nielsen, visiting you today from Keen IO. A quick pitch about us. So we make it really easy for our customers to build analytics and intelligence directly into their websites or their applications. If you're interested in hearing more about our product, you can come talk to me or you can check us out at keen.io. So a little bit about my background. I got really curious about 15 years ago about what are the environments that support us to feel our most alive. What are the conditions that are happening when people really feel inspired and excited to get out of bed every morning? And that curiosity led me to 2 different graduate degrees in behavioral sciences and my current position as the head of people at Keen IO. Oh yeah, the font is different. Don't tell Micah. Okay. So engagement. Engagement is one of those elusive qualities that can be very hard to measure, much like passion, much like people. Most people feel like they know it when they feel it or they see it. But if you're really looking for a metric to track engagement, in terms of employee engagement, employee turnover can be a pretty decent proxy for tracking your engagement over time. So at Keen, we have a less than 3% attrition rate, which is a pretty outstanding figure. Given that nationally, a target of 15% turnover is something really great to shoot for. And actually here in the Bay Area, with the startup culture and the hot job market, it's not uncommon to see closer to 30% attrition rate. So we're at less than 3%. That's pretty outstanding. So obviously the question is, how are we doing this? I can tell you it's not the money. And it's not the free food and beer, because that's just table stakes. It's not our annual trip to Hawaii, because we don't have one of those. I wish we did. But we have other figures that also demonstrate really high engagement. We have over 80% of our people participating in our learning and development programs. We have over 90% of our people participating in our internal coaching program. These are extremely uncommon statistics. So how are we doing this? So my theory, in one word to summarize, is agency. So I will tell you why I think this. And to do that, we have to go back to the 1960s to a man named Douglas McGregor, who was doing research out of MIT. And what he found in his research is that although there is a wide variety of leadership styles, the way that people approach management is generally informed by one of 2 theories about people and human motivation. The first one is Theory X. Wow, that's a really different icon than it used to be. What is that? That looks like a Burning Man thing. Anyways, so Theory X. If you have a Theory X worldview, basically people do not like to work. They require individual-based rewards, and they want to avoid responsibility as much as possible. So you can understand if this is your orientation, when you approach leadership, you're going to want to keep a pretty tight leash on your people. You're going to want to really control the scope of work that people can do, and you're going to pretty much rely on the stick and the carrot, the reward or the threat, to manage people. There's also the Theory Y belief system. So if you are under Theory Y worldview, you believe that people are intrinsically motivated. They want to take on responsibility, and they are self-rewarded by seeing their work quality and their level of productivity go up because they feel proud of it, because they're learning and they're growing. And because the learning and the growth is inherently motivating, as a leader or a manager, you're actually going to be a lot more hands-off, because if you are closely supervising them, you're going to get in the way of that growth, and you're going to actually impede the productivity and get in the way of what you're shooting for. So if you haven't guessed by now, I am in the Theory Y camp, as is Keen IO, as are some of my personal heroes, the great humanistic psychologists Carl Rogers, Carl Jung, and Abraham Maslow. Maslow has a model that you're probably familiar. We got some other Maslow fans in the audience. We should chat. I love nerds like you. I can talk about this stuff all day long. All right, so most of you are probably familiar with this model, the hierarchy of needs. And what I think is important to point out here is that if self-actualization, if self-development is a primary need, primary just like food and water, if you are fulfilling that need to self-develop, you are by nature creating an engaged employee, because they're getting one of the most important rewards, a basic need. Self-development and growth is a basic need. So if that's the case, then we need to be asking ourselves, Well, as an organization, how do we create opportunities like this for our employees so that they're able to grow and learn all the time? And that in itself is one of the greatest rewards. And unfortunately for the workplace, humans don't fit well into boxes. So what a lot of companies will try to do is they'll create a career path, and they'll say, okay, well, if you can hit X, Y, Z, you can go from level 2 to level 3. Now, that's great in a lot of ways. That type of certainty is very good for the brain. But what we've found at Keen is that it's not usually a one-size plan fits all. So you may have 2 engineers in the same exact role. Moving from A to B to C for one engineer is in their, that is where they feel inspired. That would be a great fit for them. But for a different person in the same role, that's not inspiring at all. That's very boring. And so what we try to do is create an opportunity for our people to create their own role in a way that feels inspiring and unique to them, but still maintain a productive workplace. So how do you do that? So for us, it starts with values. And the reason is that values are the basis of culture. And culture is the basis of all behavior that you see. In any workplace, in any community, it is culture that drives how we behave and interact with one another. So at Keen, we have 5 main values that we require from our employees. The first is introspection, because we expect you to know what you're passionate about. We can't figure that out for you. You've got to know what gets you out of bed in the morning. Continuous learning. We want everyone to stay curious and to solicit feedback as much as possible to enable that learning process. And personal agency. So this is obviously a big one. This is using your voice and your influence in the organization to create the type of job experience that you want to have. And honesty, so that you're speaking your truth about that and what it is that you need. And finally, empathy, so that when you do speak that truth, you're doing so with kindness and with consideration. So I could spend my entire time allocation on this topic. However, I need to move on. But the big takeaway here is that we explicitly require and request good communication and this exertion of influence in the organization. We expect it. So the other thing that we do to promote agency is we've eliminated the traditional manager role. So rather than one person having a tremendous amount of influence over your career trajectory, we've dispersed that influence widely over the company. So rather than one person saying, okay, this is the job description for this role, the teams sit down together as a unit to say, okay, this is the holistic body of work that needs to be accomplished by this team. How are we going to divvy it up so that each person is playing to their strengths and their interests? So no 2 people are doing the exact same job. They're doing their unique puzzle piece that is the right fit for them. But everything that needs to get done is being covered. We also don't just get feedback from one person that we report to. We get it from our entire team. And everyone has a chance to work with an internal coach, which again is a really popular program. If you want to hear more about that, feel free to grab me after. And then L&D. So we take a really unique approach to our learning and development. We are most interested in you, our employee, becoming the best version of yourself, a better human. We're not interested in you becoming a better whatever role you're playing, a better engineer, a better customer success person. We want you to be on that self-development path. So we give everyone a certain budget that they can spend however they like. That's absolutely their decision. Whatever they think is going to be that better version of them, whatever is that next step. So we've had people spend that money on French lessons, on learning more about anxiety, yoga classes, whatever it is. There's only 2 courses that we require that people take, one of which is effective communication. The other is emotional regulation, because we've found that these 2 skill sets greatly lead to a more productive, engaged, efficient workplace. Of course, there are challenges when you give people a lot more agency. I'd say one of the most common ones that we experience is the onboarding process that is so critical to getting up to that investment being returned. Can be very confusing when you join a company where no one tells you, these are your success metrics and these are your priorities. We expect you to join and figure that out for yourself. That's pretty disorienting. So our onboarding is probably longer than at most companies. Decision-making is also affected, certainly. And in some cases, it's faster, in some it's slower. And then finally, that amount of agency and autonomy can be exhausting. Some days you just want someone to tell you what to do. And if it wasn't the right thing, they can be like, they told me to do it. But certainly not without its challenges. But anyways, I look forward to your questions during the panel, or if you want to hit me up directly, you can email me at lisa@keen.io. Thank you.